Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today is the long-awaited video. I'm actually going to be doing like a whole recap of everything you have missed throughout Journey's life so far. If you haven't been following along, my mare Crystal was pregnant. She accidentally got pregnant a little over a year ago now actually. And we had a little baby. His name is Journey. If you want to see the birth vlog, I'll leave a link down below. But there was so many things that happened that weren't planned. My videos got behind and I didn't get a chance to vlog everything and post it as it was happening. All you guys have seen on my channel is just him coming home, and then you guys saw the name reveal, which if you haven't seen it, make sure you check that video out. I will leave a link down below. It was so cute. All the animals helped me reveal his name, so definitely check it out. But yeah, anyway, in that video he's huge, so I promised that I would do a whole recap video and show you guys everything that you have missed from the moment he came home till seeing him in his name reveal all grown up. So that's what this video is gonna be. Everything that has happened so far in his little life and all his milestones. I'm so excited to finally just put this footage out there. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of stressed out about this video because I have so much footage. I have like a month's worth of footage and I'm like, how am I gonna organize this? I really had to sit down, gather all the footage. I took notes on what I want to talk about, what I want to show you guys. So let's go ahead and get started, you guys, because there's a lot. The last thing you guys saw was Journey coming home with Crystal. At that time, I didn't have any baby-proofed paddocks. So as you guys saw, they went straight into their stall that I built. I'm so proud of it because it was perfect for them. Journey got to run and play and jump. He's the cutest little foal ever. Like, he is so curious. Every time I would go in to clean his stall, he would come right up to me. His favorite thing out of everything was the wheelbarrow. Every time I would roll it in to clean the stall, he'd run to it, smell it, spend an hour just investigating it. I don't know, he had this obsession with the wheelbarrow. It was so cute. He's a curious little boy. He plays with everything. And when we brought him home, all the horses were neighing and excited, perking up to see who had arrived. I feel like in their head they were like, what is that little thing walking around? You know, it looks like a horse, but it's like super tiny. But yeah, all the horses were obsessed. Everyone was trying to like get a good look at him. But like I said, they went straight to their stall. So at that moment, they didn't really get a chance to meet him officially. None of the horses really got to get too close. So they stayed in their stall for a while. I hated it because, as you guys know, most of our horses are turned out all the time, and I just don't like when horses are cooped up in stalls 24/7. Like, that's not a healthy way to live, especially for a growing horse. So I was trying my best to like get to it, baby-proof this paddock. So the paddock that he's in is just a smaller paddock near the barn, and that's where I wanted to turn him out just because it's a smaller area. It's still a big paddock, but it's not as like big where I can't see him. Our other pastures are a little bit bigger and the fencing is not that great. As you guys know, we had electric fencing and all the other horses were out there. So this paddock was technically just for Crystal and Journey. There was actually a moment where I just couldn't take it anymore and I wanted to turn him out. I felt so bad, and even though the paddock wasn't completely like baby proof, I decided to let them out just for a little bit, just for a little while I was standing there watching. There's so many crazy things that can happen to foals, and I will get to that. I'll talk about the accidents later on in this video, so stay tuned. But yeah, like there was just like too many hazards in that paddock, but I really wanted to let them out just for a little bit, so here's that footage. Alright you guys, so I am gonna be turning out Crystal and the baby for the first time in this paddock with the cows. I'm kind of nervous and I didn't really want to do it just because the paddock isn't ready. As you can see, there's a bunch of branches and trees and broken limbs everywhere, but they've been in here for so long, and since I am gonna deep clean the stall today, I figured it would be a good idea to let them out since I'm out here and I can keep an eye on them. So we're gonna go ahead and try this. I have an idea. I think I'm gonna feed her grain out here so that when I let her out, she doesn't want to run out that way, but that she just comes out calmly to her grain and stands here for a little while, gives the baby a chance to kind of get used to the environment before letting her run off like that. So that's my plan. Hopefully it works. I'm in my PJs, by the way, if you can't tell. Let's go ahead and do this. And the cows, I don't think they'll bother the baby. Plus Crystal will take care of the little baby, so it'll all be good.
A few moments later.
Okay, so it didn't actually work. She did stand here and eat grain for like 2 seconds, but then decided to run off. And there they go. Luckily, I can keep an eye on them.
after quite a bit of running, they have all settled down a bit. I was definitely a nervous wreck for a second there, but baby's fine, mama's fine, everyone is settled. And yep, now I'm gonna go ahead and start cleaning some stalls, let them hang out here for a little bit, and then I'll bring them back in.
So thankfully it was fine, but finally one of my friends came over and helped me completely baby-proof the paddock. There was like a piece of fencing that split the paddock that wasn't even connected to the ends of it. It was just like a random piece in the middle. So we trimmed trees, we cut down a bunch of trees, pulled out that fencing. Luckily, we were able to just get it all cleaned up, baby-proof it, make sure that everything was safe and that there was nothing that was gonna injure the baby. And finally, they got to officially get turned out without any helicopter mom supervision. To play, run around. Journey loves to run, and Crystal, of course, she loves to run, so they had their good little zoomies. Crystal got to lay down and roll, and of course Journey just copies his mama. It was so cute to see. Alright, next we're gonna talk about everyone who got to meet him. My mom was actually the first person that got to meet Journey after he was born. My younger brother George got to meet him. Obviously Rob met him too. My friends met him, and the cows actually got to meet him as well. They actually share the paddock with Crystal and Journey. So Penelope and Delilah got to meet Journey, and it was so cute. They behaved really well. I honestly wasn't too worried. I didn't think that it would be a problem for them to share a paddock. So far, 6 months later, they're all doing great. They've been living together in that paddock with no problems at all. Journey always goes up to them and then like turns around. The dogs got to meet him. So I don't know if you guys can tell from my videos, but one side of the stall is a mesh fence. So since the day we brought him home, Nike and Levi have been on that side of the mesh fence sniffing and like looking at him, especially Nike. Nike is obsessed with Journey, obsessed, like seriously. Then Journey actually goes up to the fence sometimes and Nike tries to steal some kisses. It's the cutest thing. And actually 2 horses got to meet Journey, well, through the fence, like over the fence. Ziggy and Brandy actually got to reunite with Crystal. They both got to look over the stall and look at Journey and kind of touch noses, and it was so cute. Honestly, it was like a magical moment, especially because Crystal was gone for so long and like Ziggy's like the love of her life. So it was super cute seeing that interaction, and Brandy got to like put her head over the stall, look at Journey, so did Ziggy, and Crystal did so good. Like she wasn't protective at all, she wasn't aggressive at all, except this one time. I'm so glad I have those cameras in the stall. A huge part of the footage in this video is thanks to the camera that I installed in that stall, because whenever something would happen, I would run over and save the video of like that moment. So Ziggy was actually in the stall right next to the foaling stall that I made for Crystal and Journey. I guess it was Crystal's like first heat, so she was being all like feisty and teasing him and stuff, and she actually broke the water pipe. I remember coming out and seeing a huge puddle in her stall, and I realized that there's like water shooting out of the pipe. I was so lucky that I had the camera so I could go back to the footage and see how it happened. So yeah, besides that, she hasn't been like aggressive towards the cows or the dogs or Ziggy or Brandy. She hasn't been overprotective of Journey and like attacking anyone, no. Obviously, she kind of moves the cows if they get too close, but she hasn't been like crazy charging, biting at anyone anybody. Like, she's been so mellow. I actually have some footage of Journey's first farrier visit ever. As you guys know, when Journey was born, his back legs were bending a lot, and I know a lot of you guys were worried, but that's actually very common over time. As the foals start to grow and they gain strength, their legs start to straighten out. But of course, I wanted to get like the all clear from my vet, make sure that everything was looking good and on track. His hooves were long anyway, and I actually took him back to the vet just because they have a regular vet that does all the foals there, and I figured it would be easier because doing a foal's hooves for the first time can be very tricky, especially when they're super young, just like Journey was. And that's the thing, it was like a unique situation. I know a lot of people just wait until the foal's older, but because his back legs were bending so much, it was really important to get that all looked at while he was young. That way I would have help to hold him. You know, it's crazy, you guys will see in this video. Obviously now as he's growing, we've been doing a lot of training stuff, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But before we even got to the vet's place, it was a struggle getting him into the trailer. Like, I had to wake up super early because at that time I was still working at the foaling vet. So I was gonna bring them to work with me and he'd stay there for the day, get his hooves done, and then once I got out of work, they'd both come home with me. I'm saying both because obviously Crystal came with Journey to get his hooves done.
Good morning. Hi there, little baby. Can't even see you.
Trailer. It was like 5 in the morning, still dark out, and I'm like struggling to get Journey in the trailer, and I'm like, oh my god, am I even gonna be able to take him? There was like a point where I almost gave up and I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna be able to bring him over. Like, he's not coming in. But eventually I was able to get him in. I just kind of turned him around and like backed him into the trailer, and that was the only thing that worked. It was the only way he got in. So thankfully he got to the vet's place and got his hooves done.
Easy, mama. Así estaba esta mañana, no quería entrar. ¿Cómo hiciste eso? Enséñame. Para que camine así tan rápido.
That's supposed to be in el lomo.
Okay.
But yeah, he got his hooves trimmed. It was crazy. I don't know how I would have been able to do that by myself, and you guys will see what I'm talking about in this footage.
So I hope you can take some toe off. Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah, I figured you would be.
So I would say by next time, if they're not completely up, we're gonna have to put extensions on the heels to give them the support.
Okay.
He was looking good, but Dr. Carolyn had said that if by the second trim he wasn't a lot straighter, then he might have needed some kind of plates, extensions on his back legs to kind of help and support him. But luckily, he's all straightened out now. He's perfectly fine. His legs look great. There was a moment where they had to pull him out of the stall without Crystal because they had to walk him down the aisle so that the farrier could get a good look to see how he's moving, how his hooves looked, and Crystal was left in the stall alone, and she went crazy. She went mama bear. And Journey couldn't even care less. He was like prancing down the aisle, didn't even care where his mom was, just so excited, looking around.
It's okay, Mom. Oh my god, it's okay.
See how there when she rocks up?
Yeah.
Give her a relief. Because before her toes were out way too far. Even though she'd get rocked, she couldn't get up. So
Okay.
at least now, hopefully the tendon should come up.
While they were actually trimming him, Crystal was just standing there being a good girl, just hovering, making sure her baby was okay. It was so cute. I actually vlogged his second trip to the farrier as well, but that video is kind of long. That's going to be its own video, so stay tuned for that one. Alright, so now we're moving on to the categories. It was the only way that it would make sense to me, and like the only way I could kind of organize it in my head, just because there was so much. So we're gonna talk about his diet. As you guys know, a foal's diet is their mom's milk, obviously. But because I'm so overprotective and so crazy and I overthink everything, there was a moment where I was wondering if Crystal was actually producing enough milk, because as you guys know, she was dripping milk for a long time before she even gave birth. So I was like, what if she's not like making enough milk? And I also would catch Journey drinking a lot of water from her water bucket. And I'm like, oh my god, what if he's drinking water because he's hungry and she's not like producing enough? So I spoke to my vet and I actually got him some powder milk, like a formula basically. It's for orphan foals, foals who have lost their mother or foals whose mom isn't producing enough milk. So I decided to try it. I'm like, you know what, it doesn't hurt. Like if he is getting milk, then it'll just be a little bit extra, and then if he's not getting milk, then he's gonna get what he needs from the powder milk. So I tried giving him that and he didn't like it. Well, I think he would have liked it if he would have figured out how to drink it. Because I had it in a bucket obviously, and he just like couldn't figure out how to drink it, and like he didn't really care about it too much. I feel like maybe if he would have like tasted a bit of it, he would have liked it, but I like tried to put some in his mouth, but he didn't care. He didn't want any. So that was a fail. But then I tried milk pellets and he actually liked the milk pellets a lot. It was a struggle to get him to eat it at first. He would only eat it out of my hand, but eventually he started figuring out how to eat it from a dog bowl. I used one of my dog's bowls and like put some of the milk pellets in there, and he started eating the milk pellets, which was great. So I would give him a little bit every day. Like I didn't want it to replace Crystal's milk because obviously that's super important, and I would much rather him get his milk from his mom obviously. So I didn't want to feed him a lot that he wouldn't want his mom's milk anymore. I would kind of treat it like a little snack, you know, like a little lunch snack throughout the day. And plus at this point he was already sharing grain with Crystal, so he was eating grain, he was eating hay, so this was kind of like a little extra just in case Crystal wasn't producing enough. But looking back now, I feel like she produced enough. Like she produced like a regular horse. Even now Journey's still nursing from her, she still has milk, so I don't think that was like super necessary, but I don't think it hurt at all either. So I did buy a couple bags of that for a little while. Like I fed him that for about 2 months, and then I started mixing it with Crystal's grain, and then he realized that he liked her grain a lot more than he liked those little milk pellets, so he stopped eating it. And then also I tried giving him a treat for the first time, which was kind of funny. He was trying to like figure out how to eat it. I gave him one of those little like Scooby-Doo treats that I've shown in my videos before that you can break into smaller pieces. I also gave him a peppermint once, which he kind of dropped most of it, but I feel like he ate it, so does that count? So that's kind of what his diet has been looking like so far. Now he's just eating grain and hay with Crystal, and then I catch him nursing sometimes too, but a lot less. He's 6 months old now. Well, almost 6 months in a couple days. Okay, next up, we're gonna talk about his accidents and scares. Because with horses, not just foals, I'm gonna say horses, things happen, okay? Crazy freak accidents. Horses like to get into trouble. So of course, there were a couple of accidents with Journey, or scares, but luckily he's perfectly fine, you know, thank God, he's all good. Anyway, I thought I would talk to you guys and tell you guys all the crazy things that have happened so far. So, one of the first things that happened when I first brought him home was that I decided to turn him out in our neighbor's paddock, but their back paddock isn't really enclosed well, so we would use a wire fencing whenever we would turn out the horses. And because the paddock that Crystal and Journey were in, and that they're still in, doesn't have much grass, like it literally barely has any grass, my neighbor's paddock looked so green. I decided, you know what, like I just want to turn them out there, you know, let them eat some fresh grass. And I knew that, you know, the wire fence, the electric fence, sorry, I keep saying wire, it's not working. Like I just use it so that the horses don't leave the paddock, but I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna stand here, it'll be for a little while, I'll hang out with them, it's gonna be fine. And Journey was doing great. He was running around having the time of his life in that paddock. He was having a blast, and it was so cute to watch him run and play and eat grass. But then, which I didn't catch this on camera, he just like pushed through the fence. It's like a little rope, so he literally just pushed through it. It's flimsy, it's not safe to turn out a horse there and just leave, like the horse is gonna escape. But I figured since I'm standing right there and Crystal's not gonna push through the fence and escape, like she's enjoying her grass too much, why would Journey leave Crystal? I'm like, you know what, it's fine. But then this little curious boy kind of pushes through the fence, gets out, and then Crystal starts panicking. Dooley was on the other side, so I'm like, oh my god, Journey's getting close to Dooley. Dooley's a stallion, and I heard that some stallions attack foals or something. So I'm over here panicking, trying to get Journey back into the paddock. Crystal's freaking out now because she realizes that he's on the other side of her my neighbor. She's a little old lady. She was trying to help me. Levi's running around. Oh my god, it was crazy. It was a lot. That was my bad. I shouldn't have turned him out there. I didn't think he would get out. Like, Crystal was just chill eating grass. Like, I didn't think he would leave his mom, but it happened. But he didn't leave too far. Once he got out and realized that she was on the other side, he was trying to get in too, but instead of walking through the fence again, he was just running back and forth down the paddock. So that was like the first scare, the first official scare that happened, where I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? It was just a mess, but thankfully I was able to like round him up and like kind of guide him back into the paddock, and then I turned him back into his original paddock because that wasn't gonna happen again. Okay, the next accident that happened, which I admit was very dramatic on my part. I literally bursted into tears and cried about this. Journey was having diarrhea for a couple of days, and it's kind of normal. It's like when the mares have their first heat after having a baby, the foals tend to get diarrhea. When I checked his temperature, he was fine, but the diarrhea was starting to build up on his back legs. I'm sorry if this is like too much info, if it's gross. I don't know, I'm so used to it. But yeah, the diarrhea was starting to like cake up on his back legs, and I figured, you know what, let me wash this off, try to get some of it off. So Rob came out and I asked him to hold Journey for me while I washed his back end. It was the first time I was using a hose, the first time Journey was being exposed to water, and Rob had never like held a foal before. But everything was going good, everything was going well. I was scrubbing some of it off. Obviously he was a little bit uncomfortable, so he was like moving around, didn't like the water too much. We were almost done, but then I don't know what happened. He was just sick of it. He just didn't want to get wet anymore. I don't know. He ended up doing a backflip. He was like trying to run, and like Rob was trying to grab him, and then Journey like freaked out, reared up, fell back, and literally fell on his back. And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, at that moment I didn't freak out. Well, you know what, let me be honest. The first thought in my head was like, oh my god, he's broke his back, he's ruined, he's never gonna walk again. You know, being so dramatic, even though this happens all the time, and foals and horses, even playing in the paddock, they slip, they fall backwards, like it happens a lot. But of course, I'm just like, oh my god, my baby, like what if this is it? Like what if he's done? What if he broke his back? What if he moved a plate in his back? Like, I don't know, I'm just having this whole like dramatic thing in my head about all the possibilities and all the injuries he could have just caused himself. But he got up, I just finished, I'm like, you know what, this is it, I'm not gonna continue. I turned off the water and I put him back in his stall, and I stood there and I watched him because I'm like, you know what, I want to make sure he's good. Like, you know, I really want to make sure he's not actually hurt. And as I was watching him, he started walking weird, like lifting his back legs and like walking super weird and like looking back at himself, and I literally dropped to the floor and started crying, like hysterically crying, you guys. Looking back now, like it's so dramatic because you're gonna laugh when you realize why he was doing that. But like at that moment, I just wasn't putting two and two together. I was just like, that's it, he broke his back, he's paralyzed, he can't even walk. I was just crying and screaming, just literally on the dirt, crying about this because I'm watching him walking like this, like all weird. After a while, like I collect myself, and then I see that he starts walking fine again. And then I realized why he was doing that. His hair was wet, his tail was wet, he was still dripping water all over the place. So he was walking like that because he was uncomfortable because of all the water that was still dripping on him. Like, you know, it was his first time ever being wet. That's why he was walking like that. And I was talking to my coworkers at the repro vet, and I told them about it, and they started laughing at me because they said that it was because of the water. But yeah, now looking back it's funny, but at that moment I was so sad. Okay, another scare that happened was one day I come out to the paddock and he's outside of his stall, and Crystal's in her stall, and he's just standing outside of the stall, just like standing there looking over at Crystal. Crystal's just standing inside the stall. I'm like, what the heck? How did this happen? The gate is still locked, still latched. She's inside the stall and Journey is outside of the stall. I never figured out how it happened, but I'm assuming he just kind of laid down and ended up on the other side, or rolled, or like slipped under the gate. I think he slipped under the gate. My camera didn't record at that moment because it's like outside of the camera's views, but it would have been amazing to be able to look back and see what actually happened. Like nothing crazy happened, but it was just like a funny thing. Another thing that happened, which wasn't really an accident, well, it was like an injury. Well, not an injury. He had like a splinter by his ear, like a huge piece of wood was like under his skin. And for a long time, I didn't know what it was because I just saw a bump there, right? And I'm like, is this like a bug bite? Is this like a scrape? Is he just swollen because he like knocked his head on something? But after a while, it wasn't going down, and I could see like the tip of something sticking out of his skin. So I'm like, oh my god, I think this is a splinter. I ended up massaging it every day, trying to get it out, and eventually I was able to get it out. And I'll post some pictures of the splinter that was under his skin. It was like pretty big. It was so satisfying like taking it out. I know that's so weird, but like splinters are fun, you know, when you pull them out after they've been under your skin for a while. I don't know. After that, he was kind of head shy for a while. He didn't want me to go near his head anymore and near his ears, and obviously it was because it was painful, and every time I went over to his ear, it was to like massage a piece of wood out of it. I worked with him on it and he's fine now, but yeah, that was another thing. I wonder how he got that splinter. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about one of the worst accidents that he's had. This one is a miracle that I was there. This was like one of the craziest ones. Whew, I just like, it gives me chills. When I was working at the Reaper Vet, I would come home from work around noon, and that's when I would turn Crystal and Journey out into the paddock, and I would clean the stall while they're out in the paddock, obviously, and they'd stay out until the evening when I brought them in to feed for the night. So I'm standing in the stall cleaning, right? I don't know what made me turn around and look over, but I'm cleaning the stall and randomly I get the urge to look over, and when I look over, you guys, Journey had his head stuck in between the gate and the post of the fence. I was alone. I was like, what the I just cursed, I'm sorry, but it was intense. He was panicking and trying to get his head out. Obviously he couldn't get it out, and I didn't want to run over to him and make him freak out even more. So I'm like trying to walk as fast as I can to him, and then I get there, and because his head was caught and he was pulling back, the tension on the gate, I couldn't unclip it. So I am standing there trying to control myself. I'm literally having a panic attack. I have this foal who's literally about to break his neck. And on top of that, you guys, Nike is jumping up at his face trying to lick him while his face is stuck in the fence. So I'm over here screaming at the dogs to get away while I'm trying to unclip this fence, but I can't unclip it because he's pulling back so hard that the tension on the chain won't let me unclip. Journey is literally starting to rub off his skin, freaking out. I thought that at any moment he was gonna dislocate his neck, break his neck or something. And I was alone. I didn't know what to do. I was trying to stay calm. He was starting to scream. Oh my god. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry if this is too much. I know it's getting like intense, but you know, I think he was just like obviously panicking too. So he was starting to like neigh, but it was coming out like as a scream. Like he was, I'm saying screaming, but obviously it was just him neighing, like crying. Whew, even thinking about it, like I'm already shaking. But I was able to push him forward. So I went towards his butt and I like pushed him forward as hard as I could. And when he went forward, he created space in between the gate and the post and slack in the chain. So when I pushed him forward, I was able to finally unclip the gate. It was crazy. Thankfully, he got out. It was fine. I unclipped the gate. I got him out. He had some like burns on the side of his head, but he was fine. Like he was fine. I don't even know how I got him out. I don't even know what made me look, you guys, because if you think about it, if I wasn't there, number one, and number two, if I didn't look at that moment, like he wasn't making any noise. I just look and I see him panicking, freaking out. If I wouldn't have turned at that moment, I don't know what would have happened, or like when I would have noticed, or how long he would have been stuck there before I turn around and see that he's stuck. That was one of the scariest moments ever, and I'm so glad he's okay. He could have died right there. I'm sorry it's getting so deep and like serious, but he could have died. He could have broken his neck, and it happens a lot. It's very common. So if you guys have horses, learn from my mistake. Make sure that those gaps in between your stall doors or in between your gates and your fencing are as small as possible. The problem with ours was that we had a little tire at the bottom of our gate so that when you open it, it would roll on the ground, and that little tire was creating a bigger gap, and I should have noticed it beforehand and I didn't, but now I took that little tire out and now it's a lot more flush, so hopefully that's not happening again. Okay, on a lighter note, we're gonna talk about his little bad habits. Mr. Munchkin has gone through a couple of phases with a couple of bad habits, and I think it's important to talk about them because I feel like a lot of people don't film the moments where their horses misbehave and like how they correct it and stuff. So I want to be as open, as transparent as possible because I feel like those are the most useful moments, and Mr. Munchkin has had a lot of little bad habits, and the first one is his biting phase. So he went through a little biting phase where he would nip at me all the time, and I have to admit part of it was my fault because I would mess with him, you know, try to get him to show his little teeth. Oh, he was just so cute, but I always made sure to correct him when he did that. But I think it was just a phase. Even my friend and her foal went through the same phase. I think they're just like babies, like when they're teething or something. I don't know what it is, but they go through a little biting phase.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. My little munchkin. Don't you dare. Little munchkin. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Thankfully, he's grown out of it. He's fine. No more biting, thank God. When he would bite me, if he would really get me good or like try and get my skin or something, I would tap him on the nose, you know, make sure he knows that that's not acceptable. It's not a good thing to do. But yeah, he's grown out of it. For a while there, I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is not working. I've corrected him a bunch of times and he's still biting, but I think it was just a phase, and he never bit aggressively. Like, it was never like he was trying to rip my skin off. It was more of like a little baby, like teasing kind of thing. Another bad habit, well, at first he didn't want to walk, like when I would lead him out of the stall to turn him out. He was doing fine like that first week, and then after a while he didn't want to walk anymore. But it would only be when he was in the paddock, because when we would go to the Dr. Carolyn for his farrier visit, he would walk fine. When I would turn him out to graze him with Crystal, hand graze him, he would walk fine. So it was only in the paddock. Eventually he grew out of that too. Whenever he wouldn't walk, I'd just kind of try and tap him on the butt a little bit until he'd walk forward and then release the tension on the rope. And then after that, then he would take off with me. He went through the phase where he didn't want to walk, and then he went through the phase where he would shoot out of the stall while I'm holding onto this lead rope and like try and take off while I'm holding onto him. But I wouldn't let him go. Like, I literally would not let him go until he calmed down. Like, do not do that. Like, could you imagine a full-grown horse just running off with you while you're holding on the lead rope? That's not good. That's not a good habit. But he only did that like twice out of all the times I've ever let him. So thankfully he's not doing that anymore. What would I do when he did that? I'm trying to think so I can like be of use and helpful to you guys if you're going through the same thing. Yeah, I think I just hold on to him until he calmed down, and then I take a couple steps with him, and as long as he walked okay, then I would release him and let him go. Oh my god. One night, Rob and I were in his stall, and I forgot what we were doing. We were doing something to him. I think I was taking his temperature or giving him medicine or something. I don't remember what it was, but whatever. We were done, and we let him go, and as he was walking away, he decides to like run and double barrel kick, and he literally kicked right in between Rob and I. And I have this on camera, so I'll put that footage in right now. As you saw, but after that I just kind of chased him really quick in the stall, and then he was fine. That's literally the only time he's ever kicked, but I just thought it was crazy because both Rob and I, we literally went like this, whoop, and his feet just went in between us. Luckily he's never kicked again. Another bad habit, which I don't really consider it a bad habit, but he doesn't like loading in the trailer. He just doesn't like it. He's not a fan of the trailer. It's been a struggle too, just because I've taken him so often to get his hooves done. Like, I would take him somewhere to get his hooves done, so it was a struggle to get his checkups and stuff. But I think the thing that ruined it was one time I was just like working with him the day before our appointment. I'm like, you know what, I might as well practice with the trailer today instead of doing it in the morning. He was doing so good. He walked in, and then his lead rope was so long that when he was walking out, he stepped on his own lead rope and kind of like panicked a little bit because it kind of tightened up on his face. And then ever since that moment, he's like been freaked out of the trailer. It sucks because of that one thing. Like, he stepped on his lead rope and like he was stuck there for a second, and then ever since then he's been freaked out of the trailer. But as he gets older and once he's weaned, we can do some trailer loading exercises, and I think he's gonna be fine. But I have to wait until he's weaned because it's kind of hard to like hold Crystal and him. So like once he's weaned, that's gonna be something we're gonna be working on. And then now finally, his latest bad habit, the thing that he's been doing lately that's literally gets on my nerves, is that whenever he's eating, I'll throw his hay down for him and Crystal, and he'll start eating, and then he'll turn his butt to me. He's never kicked, but he tries to like threaten me. He'll pin his ears and like turn his butt to me. Oh my god, you guys, I get so mad when he does that. He's done it like 3 or 4 times. We've worked on it though, so I'm happy to say that he's not doing it anymore, because that is not a good habit. You do not want your horse to be food aggressive or anything like that. And it's so important to make sure that you're correcting these things now when they're young, because you don't want this to evolve and get worse, especially as they grow older and bigger. They can be super, super dangerous. In those moments when he does that, I kind of just give him a little tap on the butt, make sure to move him away, and then I let him come back. And if he lets me touch him and approach him without turning his butt to me, I leave him alone. Another thing I've been doing too is I throw the grain down in the pan. I don't let Crystal or him near it until he's standing with his ears forward and relaxed. Then I walk away, and then he can approach the food. Because what he was doing before was I would pour the food and he'd come, kind of like get in my space, pin his ears, try to push me off of the food. That can be a really dangerous habit. You want to be able to feed your horse without your horse, you know, attacking you and being possessive over his food. So he's been doing super good now. He's finally getting it. He learns pretty fast. He's a good boy. Like, he's a good horse. Part of me wasn't sure if I wanted to include include that footage in this video just because there's so many opinions on how to train your horse. I know a lot of people can be very judgmental and I know it's very controversial, but I want to be as transparent and as honest, and I want to show those moments to hopefully help other equestrians out there. It's so important not to let your horse get away with these things because it can literally be life-threatening. Not only bad for you because you can get injured, seriously injured, but for your horse's safety. If your horse grows up and he's still kicking, most people aren't gonna keep their horse that kicks, and those horses end up in slaughterhouses and end up being passed around for years because no one ever gave them the discipline that they needed to fix those dangerous habits. So I want to make sure that I'm showing everything. I don't want to like hide those like firm moments because I don't want to give like a false image of what owning a horse is. It's not always sunshine and butterflies and rainbows and hugs and cuddles and treats all the time. There's moments where you have to be strict and firm because horses are huge, they're dangerous. So correcting those behaviors, especially dangerous behaviors like kicking and biting that get worse over time, is super important. So yeah. Okay, moving on. That's a good segue into training. So I'm going to talk to you guys about all the training that I've done with Journey so far. Obviously it hasn't been like extensive training because he's still a little baby, but you might not realize it, but you are always training your horse. Whenever you are in your horse's environment, whenever you're near your horse, you're always training them, whether you like it or not, whether it's to do a good thing or a bad thing, you're always training them. So I've always tried my best to be aware of that and to correct little things and to just play with him. So since the beginning, one of my favorite things to do was to just hang out with Journey in his stall. Whenever it was feeding time, I'd hang out with him. He's always been so curious, but I would take advantage of those moments to touch him all over. I would literally rub my hands over his face, over his ears. Ears are super important because a lot of horses don't like their ears being touched. So especially at a young age, that was something I did a lot. I would rub my hands down his legs, you know, make sure he was comfortable with me touching his legs, especially his back legs. So I would rub my hands down his back legs, play with his tail, just literally touch him everywhere to make sure he was comfortable with being touched by a human. So that was one thing I did all the time, which I don't complain because he's all fuzzy and cute, so like yay for me, free cuddles. But that's kind of like one of the first training things I've done with him. I also groomed him a lot. I would get just a little brush and just kind of start brushing him, see how he would react to being brushed, and he was fine with being touched everywhere. He was fine with being brushed. I would brush him under his belly, his legs, his face, and he was fine with that too. And then eventually I started picking up his legs a little bit because obviously you want to make sure your horse is comfortable with that because you're eventually gonna have to get your farrier to trim your horse. So I've started to kind of just like pick up his legs a little bit. So he was fine with me rubbing his legs, touching his legs up and down, his back legs. So then I kind of moved on to actually trying to pick it up. And as soon as he would pick it up, I would let it go, right? Because I don't want to freak him out. That's kind of how I worked with him on it. Touched his legs, try and pick it up. He picked it up, boom, let it go. Like before he gets a chance to take his leg away from me or fall, I give his leg back. And then over time, I'd hold it up a little bit longer, but I always make sure to put it down before he takes it away from me or before he panics. And then over time, he's like, oh, everything's fine. I'm not dying if I hold my leg up. So eventually I'll hold it for a little bit longer and longer. So you guys can see a lot of that footage from my camera. I would go in there all the time and just mess with him, play with him. I also made sure to always be aware of his body language and my body language. So for example, if I was in a stall and I noticed that he would kind of come into my space and kind of nudge me a little bit, you know, kind of push me, I always make sure to back him up. I don't want to be the one to move. Like I don't want him moving me out of the way. He has to respect my space. And a lot of times if you let those things slide, eventually you're gonna have a horse who is literally knocking you over, running into you, pushing you out of the way. There's been times where he literally just walks right into me and I'm like, dude, what you doing? Like, no, and I like kind of shoot him away, you know. So those are moments where you don't realize it if you're not paying attention. You'll kind of just like move out of the way. But if you do that, you're teaching your horse that they can move you out of the way, that they can run into you. So that was another thing I was always aware of, you know, just making sure he's in my space because I asked him to be in my space, not because he's just, you know, pushing into me. I also played with the water a little bit with him. Like I said earlier, I washed his back legs. I wasn't working with him. That was me just trying to get diarrhea off his legs. But I rinse Crystal all the time. She loves water and it's been so hot out. So whenever I'm rinsing her, I kind of just like move the hose and kind of sprinkle him a little bit, see how he reacts. And obviously he like runs away from it. But the other day I decided to like actually like hold on to him with the lead rope and kind of really wet him because he was sweating so much. And of course at first he was a little bit uneasy. He was like running away from the water. But then once he realized that the water just like disappears once it touches him, then he was kind of fine with it, you know? So I just kind of rinsed him off. Whenever he would move away from the water, I'd continue to spray it until he stood still, and then I'd take the water away. So that's kind of how I worked with him on that, and he did really good. So I've only done it one time, but I was able to wash his entire body, and he let me. He was fine with it. All right, you guys, I think that is all. I wrote down as many notes as possible to make sure I didn't forget anything, so hopefully I didn't. But that is it. That's everything that has happened so far. You are all caught up on everything journey. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. There are so many more journey videos coming, so stay tuned. Like I said, I vlogged his second farrier visit, so that's gonna be coming up on my channel soon. And if you don't know, I actually have journey merch up on my shop, so if you guys want to get a t-shirt or a hoodie, definitely check it out. And oh my goodness, thank you guys so much for shopping. I'm so happy you guys love the design. Definitely tag me in your pictures. Of course, if you cannot shop right now, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know so much is going on. Please do not feel like you have to purchase anything. Again, like I've said in the past, you guys support me enough by liking my videos, by subscribing, by commenting. So thank you so much. And yeah, like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you guys for being a part of the journey. It's gonna be so cool to look back on these videos. Here is my notification shout out. Thank you guys so much for commenting. If you want to be shouted out in my next video, all you have to do is just click that notification bell and then leave me a comment down below letting me know that you've done it, and that is it. You might be shouted out in my next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're staying safe. I know these times have been so rough, but hopefully these videos are a good distraction. A lot more are coming, so stay tuned. Bye.